New Jersey has spent 250 years wedged between New York and Philadelphia, two cities that never shut up about themselves, quietly running their ports, factories, and highways while both of them took the credit and held their nose at the smell of the work. So the whole country decided New Jersey is the Turnpike, the refinery near Elizabeth, and guys wearing tightly fitted tank tops. That's about 4 miles of Jersey. There are 7,000 more. And today we're driving through all of them, top corner to bottom, from the highest point in the state down to the last lighthouse before the ocean takes over. We're hitting 60 stops, one long descent, and a running list of genuinely spectacular things that have been hiding 40 minutes from your house while you drove past everyone to get to a Chili's. Act 1, the Gateway. We start in a place where the state likes to show off. Right up against the Hudson River, the land rears up into the Palisades, 500 feet of sheer volcanic cliff running for miles along the West Bank, staring straight across the water at Manhattan, and it's the best free view on the East Coast. You could pay $600 a night for a hotel room in Midtown to look at a building, or you can come stand up here for nothing and look at all of them at once. These cliffs are so geologically distinct, they gave their name to an entire category of rock formation, which is a sentence that surprises exactly nobody who has ever stood at the top of them. And at the turn of the century, we were selling them for gravel. Quarry outfits set up at the base and spent years blasting the face of the Palisades apart with dynamite, hauling it off in barges, crushing it into paving stone, and shipping it across the river to pave the streets of New York City. Corporations were blowing up the most beautiful spot in North Jersey and mailing it to Manhattan so that Manhattan would have somewhere nice to stand while it watched us do it. The blasts were loud enough to hear across the water. People on the New York side would come out and watch the cliffs come down like it was fireworks. And you want to know who stopped it? The New Jersey Federation of Women's Clubs. While the state government was doing absolutely nothing, a bunch of women organized, made it a public scandal, shamed the money out of J.P. Morgan and the Rockefellers, and got the whole cliff face made into a park in 1900. So the next time somebody from across the river gets cute about New Jersey, remember that the only reason their skyline has anything decent to look back at is that our grandmothers wouldn't let them finish the job. Nestled right up on top of those cliffs is Alpine, which is by most measures the richest town in New Jersey. This zip code shows up on national lists of the most expensive in America. And the residents are hedge fund guys, rappers, and retired athletes who wanted Manhattan money and Manhattan proximity, but absolutely no Manhattan neighbors. Here's the thing, though. You won't see any of it. There's no main street, no downtown, no restaurants, no place to be seen. The whole town is trees and gates and a police department with essentially nothing to do. The mansions sit so far back from the road that the driveways have their own driveways. In most rich towns, the point is that you can see the money. In Alpine, the point is that you can't, and that costs extra. Now down into Paterson, which most people have written off entirely, and which is sitting on one of the most legitimately jaw-dropping natural features in the northeastern United States, the Great Falls, 77 feet of the Passaic River throwing itself into a basalt gorge in the middle of a city, more than 2 billion gallons a day, and it is the second largest waterfall by volume east of the Mississippi, second only to Niagara Falls. The reason it matters is that Alexander Hamilton stood here in 1791, looked at all that free power, and decided this was where America would build its first planned industrial city, the actual birthplace of American manufacturing, the place where they made the first Colt revolvers and the locomotives and half the silk in the country. It's a national historical park now, and the falls are still going. And most people in this state have never seen them because they heard the word Paterson and stopped listening. East a bit into Essex County, you hit Montclair, which is what happens when Brooklyn creative professionals decide they want a yard but refuse to psychologically leave Brooklyn. It's a genuinely beautiful town. Big old houses, a legitimate art museum, a film festival, more independent coffee shops per capita than should be legal, and a downtown where everyone is a podcast host, a documentary editor, or a therapist, and half of them are all three. The schools are diverse, and the parents are extremely loud about how much they value that in a way that is almost questionable. Stephen Colbert lives out this way. So do a rotating cast of authors and musicians and news anchors who wanted trees and a train to the city and plausible deniability about having left it. It's a place with genuine culture and genuine charm, excellent restaurants, a legitimate film festival run entirely by people who will inform you completely unprompted within 4 minutes of meeting you that Montclair is basically the city, but with a backyard. Then Morristown, which today is a sleek little corporate money town with an outstanding restaurant scene and a beautiful town green, and which was, 250 years ago, the actual military capital of the American Revolution. George Washington headquartered the Continental Army here through 2 brutal winters, including one that was worse than Valley Forge, colder, harder, more men lost, and somehow nobody made a movie about it because it happened in Jersey, and that ruins the branding, apparently. You can stand in Jockey Hollow where the army camped and froze. The whole town is quietly one of the most historically important places in the country, and it wears it about as casually as it wears its property taxes. And then Newark, the biggest city in the state, the place people fly into and immediately leave. And if that's all you know about Newark, you're missing a city with actual treasures in it. Let me show you 2. First, the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart, which is a full-blown French Gothic cathedral sitting in the middle of the city. The kind of architecture people cross an ocean and pay for a guided tour to stand inside of, except this one is off Clifton Avenue. It's one of the 5 largest cathedrals in North America, with a nave longer than the one in Notre Dame in Paris, 2 spires pushing 230 feet into the air, and stained glass and vaulted stone that would stop you dead in the middle of France. Pope John Paul II came here in 1995 and prayed in it, which is a real thing that actually happened. Every year, millions of people fly into Newark Liberty, look out the window at the tarmac and the toxic waste, decide they've now seen New Jersey, and take an Uber straight through to New York, passing within 5 minutes of a cathedral their guidebook would call unmissable if it were anywhere in Europe. Second, right next door, Branch Brook Park, the first county park ever opened to the public anywhere in the United States, laid out by the same firm that designed Central Park, which means the people who built the most famous green space in America came to Newark and did it again. And every April, this place quietly humiliates the nation's capital. There are more than 5,000 cherry blossom trees here in 18 varieties, the largest collection anywhere in the country. Washington has about 3,800 in a handful of varieties, and 1.5 million people a year make the pilgrimage. Newark has more trees, more color, a festival that's been running for 50 years, and roughly nobody outside Essex County has ever heard of it. Because nobody expects Newark to be beautiful, which is precisely why it is. Across to the waterfront and into Hoboken, 1 square mile of brownstones and bars packed with more former college lacrosse players than any comparable area on Earth. This is Frank Sinatra's hometown. There's a park named after him with the single best skyline view in the region. And it is also, according to a very persistent claim, the site of the first officially recorded baseball game in 1846 at the Elysian Fields. It's also where Carlo's Bakery from The Cake Show is, with a line out front of tourists who will wait 40 minutes for a cannoli that's honestly a 6 out of 10. Hoboken is where 26-year-olds go to postpone adulthood in a really scenic way, and it's spectacular at it. Right below it, Jersey City, which has quietly become one of the most underrated cities in America. It's one of the most diverse in the entire country, where you can eat food from 30 countries in a 10-block radius and hear as many languages walking to the train. Jersey City has skyrocketed from the place across from the good place to a legitimate skyline of its own. The waterfront over in Exchange Place got so packed with financial industry back offices, they nicknamed it Wall Street West. The luxury towers now stare Manhattan down as equals. The food scene on Newark Avenue is one of the best in the state, and the whole city has the energy of a place that spent decades being underestimated, watched its rent triple, and has decided all at once that it's done apologizing for existing. 20 years ago, the joke was that Jersey City was where you lived when you couldn't afford New York. Now, half of New York can't afford Jersey City. And on Jersey City's edge is Liberty State Park, which comes with the fact every New Jerseyan should be legally required to deploy at least once a year. The Statue of Liberty is sitting in New Jersey's water. In 1998, New York and New Jersey went to court over the island, and New Jersey won most of it. The court ruled that the land that makes up the majority of Liberty Island is sovereign New Jersey territory. Manhattan has spent a century putting her on postcards, but she's been standing in our water the whole time. Ferries to the statue and Ellis Island leave right out of Liberty State Park, and they are, in every measurable way, the better move than NYC. Cheaper parking, shorter lines, and you're not boarding alongside 4,000 people who just walked out of Times Square. The park itself is a huge open stretch of green with the skyline laid out across the water, close enough that you can pick out individual buildings and it costs nothing. Now, connecting all this industrial northeast together is the Pulaski Skyway, a black steel cantilever monster from 1932 that hangs over the Meadowlands like a set piece from a movie about the end of the world. It was so deadly to build and to drive that it earned the nickname Highway to Hell. It has no shoulders and on-ramps that merge at the worst possible angles, and it's so quintessentially bleak industrial New Jersey that Orson Welles put it in the radio broadcast of War of the Worlds, and every Sopranos-style opening credits sequence owes it a royalty. It's ugly, it's beautiful, it's both at the same time, a true paradox. And then, rising out of the Meadowlands swamp next to the stadium, there's the American Dream. It's a $6 billion mega mall that took roughly 20 years and 3 different developers to finish, was such an eyesore for so long that one governor called it the ugliest building in the state while it was still being built, and finally opened right before COVID shut down the entire concept of shopping in person. Inside, there's an indoor ski slope, real snow year-round in a swamp in New Jersey that ironically caught fire once. There's a Nickelodeon theme park with a roller coaster holding the world record for the steepest drop. There's a water park where a decorative helicopter fell from the ceiling and injured several people who then went on to sue the mall. This place overall has lost hundreds of millions of dollars. It is drowning in debt. And it is also, on a Saturday, completely packed. Because the thing about the American Dream is that it's a perfect representation of our state. Too many people, too expensive, deeply troubled, wildly ambitious, structurally questionable, and absolutely refusing to fail quietly. You have to respect it. You don't have to go inside, but you have to respect it. Act 2, the Skylands. Now we head into a part of the state that many don't believe exists. Northwest New Jersey, Sussex and Warren counties, 1,000,000 miles away from the Turnpike in spirit and about an hour in a car, and it is mountainous. Ridges and hardwood forest and black bears and towns where the traffic is tractors and off-road vehicles. There are people who have lived their whole lives in this state and could not tell you it's up here. An entire region that has seemingly disappeared from the most densely populated state in America. All the way up the Kittatinny Ridge, the ground rises and rises until it simply can't anymore. That's High Point State Park, 1,803 feet above sea level, the single highest piece of dirt in the entire state. And to prove it, somebody stuck a 220-foot stone obelisk on top of it in 1930 so that the highest point in New Jersey is now even higher, out of what I can only describe as pure spite. You can climb the 291 steps inside it. You look out 4 little windows, and you can see 3 states at once: New York, Pennsylvania, and the one you're standing in. Mountains in every direction, not a refinery in sight. And every out-of-stater who's ever done the New Jersey jokes would look at this view and short circuit because it does not compute with the image they have in their head. Slide a little south and west, and you hit the Delaware Water Gap, which is the part of the drive where the Appalachian Mountains got cut clean in half by the Delaware River over millions of years, leaving a genuine mountain pass with the river running right through the middle of it and Pennsylvania staring at you from the far bank. People hike Mount Tammany here, a brutal red dot trail straight up the ridge that people swear they're going to do next year when they're in shape. You can tube the river all afternoon, stand at overlooks that look like a screensaver, and the whole time you're only 30 minutes from a diner that serves disco fries. This is a federally protected recreation area, 70,000 acres of it, straddling 2 states, and it exists in the same New Jersey that the rest of the country thinks is one continuous strip mall. That's the Skylands in one sentence. National park scenery with a pork roll safety net. You could airlift someone from Montana into this valley, and they'd have no idea they weren't home until they hit the first jug handle. Now, deep in the woods near Blairstown, there's something that has no business being as impressive as it is. The Paulinskill Viaduct, 1,100 feet long, 115 feet in the air, 7 enormous concrete arches marching across a valley, and when it was finished in 1910, it was the single largest reinforced concrete structure on the entire planet, on Earth. They were literally writing the rule book for how to build big things out of concrete as they went, and the thing they built to figure it out is sitting abandoned in the New Jersey forest where a raccoon lives in it now. The train stopped in the 70s, the tracks came up in 84, and ever since it's been a 115-foot tall canvas that gets repainted with graffiti faster than the state can whitewash it. There's also a legend that a worker got buried alive in the wet concrete during construction and still walks the top at night, which is exactly the kind of story a state like this tells about its infrastructure. We don't get plaques, we get ghosts. Back on the ridge, tucked into the mountains, there's Sunfish Pond, a glacial lake left behind when the last ice age packed up and left. One of the officially designated 7 natural wonders of New Jersey, which is a phrase that makes people from other states physically flinch. Yes, we have natural wonders. Yes, plural. It's a clear mountain lake surrounded by boulders and forest. A serious uphill hike to reach. No road, no snack bar. Just you and a lake the glaciers made. And the reward for the climb is that nobody's blasting music because most of the state doesn't know it's here. Keep going and you get Buttermilk Falls, which is the tallest waterfall in the entire state, a 200-foot cascade coming down the mountainside in Stoke State Forest with a staircase built right alongside it so you can climb the whole thing. It's the closest New Jersey comes to feeling like the Pacific Northwest. And getting there requires a couple miles of unpaved dirt road in Wallpack that will rearrange your suspension and take a good hard look at whatever you're driving. A little deeper into Stokes is Tillman Ravine, which is where a stream spent a couple thousand years carving a hemlock-shaded gorge into the mountain, with these smooth stone potholes and a spot everyone calls the teacup. And the whole ravine stays about 10 degrees cooler than everywhere else because the trees are so thick the sunlight can barely get in. It is a genuinely primeval-looking place, dark and green and dripping, and it's in the same state as the Vince Lombardi rest stop. Down in Morris County, there's Hackle Barney State Park, which sounds like a character you'd get punched for making up, but it's a rugged little river gorge where the Black River tumbles over boulders through a valley full of hemlocks, and in October, the whole thing turns into the kind of fall foliage postcard that people drive up from the suburbs to stand in. It's small, it's rocky, it punches way above its size, and its greatest crime is having a name that sounds like a sneeze. Then there's Ken Lockwood Gorge, a couple miles of the south branch of the Raritan River running through a steep wooded canyon on a one-lane gravel road, and it's one of the most famous fly fishing stretches in the state. Trout water, cold and clear, with guys standing thigh-deep in waders at 7 in the morning pretending they're in Appalachia when they are, in fact, 20 minutes from a Wawa, which honestly might be better than Appalachia because Appalachia doesn't have Wawa. And now we get to one that simply looks out of place. Round Valley Reservoir. From above, it looks like somebody dropped a piece of the Caribbean into Hunterdon County. Turquoise water, clear to the bottom, ringed by mountains. It's 180 feet deep, the deepest lake in the state. And it is genuinely beautiful, and it has a body count. They call it the Bermuda Triangle of New Jersey, because more than 26 people have drowned in it since 1971, and at least 6 of them have never been found. Because when the state built it in 1960, they flooded an entire farming valley and left the trees, the buildings, the barbed wire, all of it, standing at the bottom. There's a whole ghost town down there. Foundations, a church, a school, and when someone drowns, the body gets tangled in that sunken forest, and the lake just keeps it. Divers say the water's so cold and so deep, it doesn't give people back. Go for the turquoise water. Just maybe read the room before you swim out too far. To calm everybody's nerves after that, we roll into Clinton, which is home to the Red Mill, a bright red 1810 grist mill standing on the south branch of the Raritan with a waterfall right beside it. And it is, no exaggeration, one of the most photographed buildings in the entire state. It's on postcards, it's on calendars. It's the shot every North Jersey person has taken and posted like they discovered it. The downtown is all restored storefronts and a stone bridge. It's aggressively charming, and it exists specifically so you can stand there after Round Valley and remember that New Jersey is also this. And we close out the Skylands in Lambertville, right on the Delaware, staring across at New Hope, Pennsylvania, a river town of antique shops, art galleries, restaurants where the entree has a story, and the kind of population that fled Brooklyn a decade ago and now has strong opinions about locally sourced honey. It's walkable, it's gorgeous, it's the softest possible landing after a lake that eats people, and it's the last stop before we drop out of the mountains and go further into the center of the state. Act 3, the Heartland. Now we come to Central Jersey, which, depending on who you ask, is either the geographic heart of the state or a mass hallucination. North Jersey says you're South Jersey. South Jersey says you're North Jersey. And the argument has been running so hot for so long that in 2023, the governor signed an actual law declaring that Central Jersey exists and ordering the state to put it back on the tourism map. A legislature had to convene and legally confirm the existence of a place where 1 million people were already living. Most productive thing the state government has done since COVID. Into Somerset County, we hit Duke Farms. 2,700 acres that used to be the private estate of Doris Duke, the tobacco heiress once called the richest girl in the world, who spent her enormous fortune turning this land into her own private paradise of lakes, fountains, meadows, and woodland. Today, it's open to the public as one of the largest privately owned parks in the country, free to walk, with miles of trails and orchards and a lake district she engineered by hand. And the whole time you're strolling through it, you're walking through what one very rich, very lonely, very interesting woman decided to do with more money than a small country. It's gorgeous. It's also a little haunting in the way inherited fortunes usually are. And now in Robbinsville, on a flat stretch of Central Jersey farmland where you would expect absolutely nothing, sits one of the most staggering buildings in the Western Hemisphere, the Baps Swaminarayan Akshardham. This is a Hindu mandir, a temple, and it is the second largest Hindu temple in the entire world, the largest outside of India, spread across 183 acres, built out of nearly 2 million cubic feet of hand-carved stone. Every single carving was cut by artisans in India and shipped here and assembled by a volunteer workforce over more than a decade. It rises out of the fields like something teleported in from another continent, pink stone and intricate spires and reflecting pools, and the first time you see it, you genuinely cannot process that it's in New Jersey, off exit 7A between New York and Philadelphia. It's free to visit. It is quiet and enormous, and one of the most jaw-dropping things in this entire state, and it's sitting in a township most of you have never had a single reason to say out loud. Then Princeton, which barely needs an introduction, and which is somehow still underrated by the people who live an hour from it. One of the oldest and most prestigious universities on Earth, a campus that looks like Hogwarts got a bigger budget. A town where Einstein spent the last decades of his life just walking around being Einstein, and where Nassau Hall briefly served as the capital of the entire United States in 1783. The main street is all bookshops and old stone and the specific smell of money that's been money for 300 years, the kind of town where the coffee shop has a wait list and the bookstore has a rare editions room. There was a Revolutionary War battle fought right here on and around the campus in 1777, Washington again, because it is genuinely impossible to drive across this state without tripping over something Washington did. It is the densest concentration of history and brain power per square foot in the entire country, and the students gliding by on bikes with their whole futures ahead of them can probably barely believe they're in New Jersey. They think they've somehow transcended it, floated above it into some ivy-covered nowhere, but they haven't. They're in Mercer County. They're one wrong turn from a strip mall with a pizzeria like the rest of us. Just down the road in Hamilton is Grounds for Sculpture, which is what happened when a Johnson & Johnson heir named Seward Johnson decided to turn 42 acres of the old state fairgrounds into an immersive art park stuffed with hundreds of sculptures, including a bunch of his own life-sized, hyper-realistic bronze people scattered through the gardens so that you're constantly turning a corner and having a small heart attack because you think there's a man in the bushes and it's a statue. There are peacocks. There's a Van Gogh painting recreated as a walk-in three-dimensional scene. It is one of the most genuinely magical places in New Jersey, and it exists because one very wealthy man had a vision and the resources to fully commit to it, which is, again, a recurring theme in this state. And then the capital, Trenton, a city that has had a pretty rough couple of decades that most of the state only thinks about when the news is bad. And that also happens to be where George Washington pulled off the Crossing the Delaware surprise attack on Christmas night in 1776 that arguably saved the entire Revolution. This is where the country got its second wind. Trenton was once a manufacturing powerhouse, a city that made wire rope and rubber and pottery and shipped it everywhere, and it's got the bones of that greatness still standing even as it fights to figure out its next act. It's the seat of the whole state government, and it deserves a lot better press than it gets. Spanning the Delaware right there is the single greatest civic slogan in America, spelled out in giant lit-up letters across the side of a 1928 bridge. Trenton makes, the world takes. It was true when they put it up. This city made things the entire planet bought, and now it reads like the most bittersweet sentence in the state, a monument to an industrial confidence that mostly moved away, still glowing over the river every single night. Most New Jerseyans have seen it. Nobody who's seen it forgets it. It's the whole story of American manufacturing in 5 words on a bridge. Up in Edison, a town literally renamed after the man, stands the Thomas Edison Memorial Tower, a 130-foot concrete tower topped with a giant illuminated light bulb marking the exact spot of the Menlo Park laboratory where Edison invented the practical incandescent light bulb and the phonograph and basically dragged humanity into the modern age. They called him the Wizard of Menlo Park. This is where the wizard worked. The lab's gone, but the giant light bulb still glows over Route 27, which is the most on-the-nose memorial in the country. And I mean that as the highest compliment. And to close the heartland, New Brunswick, home to Rutgers, the State University, and to the global headquarters of Johnson & Johnson, which means the town is 1 part rowdy college and 1 part corporate pharma money. An interesting combination that produces both a killer live music and theater scene and a downtown that's constantly rebuilding itself. This is a college town with real impact, a place where the state educates itself and Band-Aids get invented, and it's our last stop before the land starts flattening out and turning sandy and heading for the Pines. Act 4, South Jersey and the Pines. Cross into South Jersey, and you're in a different country, one that roots for the Eagles with a religious intensity, calls it pork roll instead of Taylor ham, would take a bullet for Wawa, and considers North Jersey a foreign nation it has genuinely never once related to. Down here, they'll tell you they basically live in Philly, which they do not, but the loyalty is real and the accent is different, and the whole bottom third of the state quietly operates as a suburb of a city in another state entirely. First stop, Collingswood, a walkable, tree-lined, gorgeously restored little town just outside Camden that's completely dry. You cannot buy a drink in a restaurant, so everybody brings their own bottle, which the whole town has decided is charming and which visitors describe as, "Wait, really?" It's got a killer farmer's market, a main street full of independent restaurants, and the specific energy of a place that fixed itself up and knows it. Right nearby is Haddonfield, which is also dry, also beautiful, also full of colonial-era buildings and boutiques, and which has one truly incredible claim to fame. The first nearly complete dinosaur skeleton ever discovered anywhere on Earth came out of the ground right here in 1858, the Hadrosaurus. This quiet, upscale, alcohol-free Philadelphia suburb is the birthplace of American dinosaur paleontology. There's a statue of the dinosaur downtown. People walk past it to get to the wine shop that doesn't exist because the town is dry. It's perfect. And then the land opens up into the area that takes up roughly a fifth of this entire state, and that almost nobody outside of it can explain. The Pine Barrens, over 1 million acres of scrub pine and sand and cedar rivers, the color of iced tea, sitting an hour from Philadelphia and 90 minutes from Manhattan, which means the most densely populated state in America is keeping a desolate forest the size of Yosemite in its back pocket and telling nobody. Underneath it is the Kirkwood-Cohansey Aquifer, 17 trillion gallons of some of the cleanest water in the country, which provides drinking water for tens of millions of people. New Jersey is sitting on an underground ocean, while people spend their lives complaining about the water pressure in Hackensack. This is also, of course, Jersey Devil Country, a winged, horse-headed thing supposedly born to a Pines woman in the 1700s who had 12 kids, and upon learning about number 13, said out loud that this one shall be the devil. He's been out here ever since, and the state named its professional hockey team after him. Every winter, 20,000 people in Newark stand up and cheer for a team named after a demon that a tired mother cursed into existence 300 years ago in the Pines. The trees out here all look identical. People routinely get lost. It's the emptiest, strangest, most unsettling corner of a state that everyone assumes is a continuous industrial park, and it's right there at the bottom of the exit ramp. Deep in those pines is Wharton State Forest, the largest single tract in the state park system, and inside it, Batstow Village, a preserved 1700s iron-making town where they once smelted bog iron out of the ground and made cannonballs and supplies for the Revolution. And then the bog iron ran out, the industry collapsed, and the whole town just stopped. Now it's frozen in time. the mansion, the general store, the workers' houses, the sawmill, all standing in the middle of the wilderness like a ghost of an entire economy that the pines swallowed. You walk through it and realize that out here, a whole town can be born. Boom, die, and get quietly absorbed back into the forest, and most of the state will never know it existed. There's another town buried in these pines, one that gave the world something you've eaten 1,000 times without ever wondering where it came from. White's Bog, a preserved company town in the middle of the Pinelands, is where a woman named Elizabeth White invented the blueberry. Wild blueberries had always grown out here, and they were sour and inconsistent and small, and every farmer in America agreed they simply could not be domesticated. So starting around 1911, White went into the woods with a tape measure and paid the local pineys $1 a bush for any wild blueberry plant with berries at least 5/8 of an inch across. She tagged them, named them after the men who found them, and spent 5 years crossbreeding them with a botanist from the USDA, killing off any bush that wasn't sweet enough, big enough, or hardy enough, until in 1916 she brought the first cultivated blueberry crop in the world to market. Keep pushing southwest into Salem County, and something happens that shocks every North Jerseyan who's never come down here. It turns into farmland. Real, sprawling, horizon-to-horizon farm country. Cornfields and soybean fields and tractors and roadside produce stands and a slow, southernish drawl that gets thicker the further down you go. People say it looks like Alabama, and they would be correct. This is the place that puts the garden in the Garden State, the flat, fertile bottom corner of New Jersey where the tomatoes and the corn come from. And it feels 1,000 miles and about 40 years away from the Turnpike, even though it's the same state in the same afternoon. And if you think the farmland is where the surprise ends, drive out Route 40 to Piles Grove, where every Saturday night from May through September, there is a professional rodeo, an actual rodeo. Bull riding, steer wrestling, saddle bronc, barrel racing, 4,000 people in wooden bleachers, cowboys on the pro circuit who flew in from Oklahoma to compete. It's called Cowtown. The same family has run it since 1929, and it is the longest-running weekly rodeo in the United States of America. Texas has nothing that's been going this long. Wyoming has nothing that's been going this long, and it's happening 30 minutes from the Delaware Memorial Bridge in a state whose entire national reputation is a guy in a tank top fighting outside a nightclub. The Old West is alive and well, and it's in Salem County, New Jersey, and it has been the entire time you've been making that joke. Salem County's farmland runs right down to the water, to the Delaware Bay, where you'll find the East Point Lighthouse, a little red-roofed 1849 lighthouse standing almost alone on a quiet, marshy, underpopulated stretch of bay shore, one of the oldest in the state, the kind of place where at sunset there's nobody around but you, the tall grass, the birds, and the water going pink. It's the payoff for driving all the way down here. It's the moment the farm country meets the sea. And it's the quiet before we swing east and hit the loud part. Act 5, the shore. Now we come all the way back up and out to the coast, to the very top of the Jersey Shore, to Sandy Hook, a long, thin barrel of sand curling out into the harbor, half beach, half old military base, with Manhattan sitting right there across the water so that you can lie on the sand with the skyline in the background. There are miles of beaches, an abandoned Fort Hancock with its eerie row of empty officers' houses, and, at the tip, the thing that makes this the perfect gateway to the shore, the Sandy Hook Lighthouse. Lit for the first time in 1764, 12 years before there was a United States of America to have a lighthouse in, and still working today, which makes it the oldest continuously operating lighthouse in the entire country. It's guided ships into New York Harbor for over 260 years. It was so important that during the Revolution, American patriots snuck up and tried to sabotage it, smashed the lamps, hauled off the whale oil, specifically so the British ships couldn't use it. It survived. It's still on. It has been doing its one job without a break since before the country existed, perhaps the single most reliable thing in the entire state. Just inland, sitting right on the Navesink River, is Red Bank, a town of about 12,000 people that somehow supports a music scene most cities of 100,000 would kill for. The Count Basie Center for the Arts anchors it, a 1926 theater named after the jazz legend who was born here on Mechanic Street, and it pulls in touring acts that skip Newark entirely. There's a river with sailboats on it, a downtown of restaurants people drive in from 3 counties to get a table at, and enough boutiques that everybody walking around has the vague sense of being filmed. Red Bank is cool, self-aware, walkable, and just slightly pleased with itself about all of it. It's the proof that the shore isn't only sand and boardwalks, and that some of these towns had real money and real culture before anyone thought to put a beach badge on it. Asbury Park, which is the greatest comeback story on the entire coast. For decades, this was a crumbling, half-abandoned boardwalk city, all faded grandeur and boarded windows. And it's where Bruce Springsteen came up playing the Stone Pony, turning this specific boardwalk into the actual mythology of New Jersey. And then, over the last 20 years, it roared back. The boardwalk's alive again. The music venues are packed. It became one of the most vibrant destinations on the East Coast. The restaurants are excellent. And the whole town has this electric mix of grit, glamour, and salt air. Asbury Park died and came back better, which few places can say they've pulled off. Directly next door, sharing a literal border with rowdy resurgent Asbury Park, is Ocean Grove, a town founded in 1869 as a Methodist camp meeting retreat, so devout that for over a century it banned cars on Sundays, and that still, to this day, has an actual neighborhood of hundreds of tiny permanent Victorian tents, canvas homes that families have passed down for generations, packed together around the centerpiece. And that centerpiece is the Great Auditorium, an enormous 1894 wooden hall that seats over 6,500 people, built like a barn crossed with a cathedral, with acoustics so good that famous performers and presidents have stood on that stage, and a massive pipe organ that fills the whole space. It's one of the largest structures of its kind in the country, made almost entirely of wood, sitting in a tent city next to a boardwalk, next to the Stone Pony. The Jersey Shore contains multitudes, and most of them are within walking distance of each other. South a little to Spring Lake, nicknamed the Irish Riviera, a genteel, old-money shore town of enormous Victorian houses, a non-commercial boardwalk with no arcades and no funnel cake, a spring-fed lake in the middle, and a population of well-heeled families who have summered here for 4 or 5 generations and would very much prefer you keep it down. It's the elegant, hushed Irish Catholic money end of the shore, and it is beautiful in a way that makes you lower your voice without being told to. Then Belmar, which is the exact opposite, and thank God for it. This is where every 22-year-old from North Jersey spends the summer splitting a 6-bedroom rental 14 ways, where the bars are packed and the beach is a scene, and the whole town runs on sunscreen and questionable decisions. The summer share house is a whole institution here. 1 lease, 14 names on it, a rotation system for the beds that immediately collapses, and a security deposit everyone has already made peace with never seeing again. Belmar is the shore as a rite of passage, loud and sunburned and completely unbothered, the place you go at 23 to make the decisions you'll be telling stories about at 40, and it exists specifically so Spring Lake has something to clutch its pearls about all summer long. Down to Point Pleasant Beach, the classic family boardwalk, Jenkinson's, the arcade lights, the little aquarium, the smell of fried everything hanging in the salt air, the rides, the games you cannot win and were never meant to win. The platonic ideal of a Jersey Shore boardwalk night where a family of 4 can spend $80 and 3 hours trying to land a ping pong ball in a bowl to win a goldfish that will die in the car on the way home. The seagulls here have organized. They will take the funnel cake directly out of your child's hand with the confidence of an animal that has done this before and faced no consequences. It's wholesome, it's nostalgic, it's a little sticky, and it's exactly what most people picture when they close their eyes and picture the shore. Then Seaside Heights, which is where the picture gets complicated because this is the town the show happened in. This is where MTV filmed Jersey Shore, where Jim Tan Laundry entered the language, where an entire generation of Americans got a deeply cursed idea of what all of New Jersey is like. And it's also the town where Hurricane Sandy famously dumped the Jetstar roller coaster into the ocean in 2012, leaving it standing in the surf for months in one of the most haunting images the state has ever produced. Seaside is chaotic, it's a little rough, it's a lot of fun, and it's carrying the reputational weight of the entire state on its sunburned shoulders, which frankly it never asked to do. And then immediately, right below the chaos of Seaside, the state does something perfect. Island Beach State Park. 10 miles of completely undeveloped barrier island, no boardwalk, no houses, no development, just dunes and ocean and one of the largest stretches of protected coastline left on the East Coast, exactly the way the whole shore looked before anyone built a single thing on it. You can see osprey and fox out here. You go from the neon of Seaside to genuine wilderness in about 15 minutes, which tells you everything about how much range this coastline actually has. Further down, LBI, Long Beach Island, an 18-mile-long sandbar of a barrier island so thin that in a lot of spots you can see the ocean and the bay at the same time, standing in one place, which is a genuinely disorienting thing the first time it happens to you. It's a whole world unto itself, family-friendly and low-key, and beloved with a fierce, almost cult-like loyalty by the people who've been coming since they were kids and now bring their own kids and refuse to vacation literally anywhere else on the planet. There are no high-rises, just beach towns strung along a ribbon of sand, mini golf and ice cream in the same rental house every August, and an unspoken understanding that whatever's happening on the mainland can wait until Labor Day. At the north tip of LBI stands Old Barney, the Barnegat Lighthouse, 172 feet of red and white striped lighthouse designed by George Meade, the same general who'd go on to win the Battle of Gettysburg before he was a general. You climb the 217 steps and the whole island and the ocean and the bay open up beneath you. It's one of the most beloved landmarks on the entire coast, and locals talk about Old Barney like it's a relative. And then, rising out of the marshes ahead, the skyline of Atlantic City, and there is no place in America quite like it. This is the town the entire Board of Monopoly is named after. Boardwalk, Park Place, Baltic Avenue, all of it, real streets right here. Because AC was once the glittering vacation capital of the East Coast. The place the whole country came to promenade on the first boardwalk ever built in America. Then it crashed hard, and the casinos came in the 70s and made it Vegas on the Atlantic. Then half the casinos went bankrupt, including a few with a very famous name on them. And the city has been on the most dramatic roller coaster of boom and bust in the state for over a century. You can win a fortune and lose it and get a 5-star meal and see a legendary act and walk 2 blocks in the wrong direction into poverty and hardship, all in the same night, all within sight of the same ocean. It is glamorous and broke, thrilling and sad, gaudy and historic, forever in the middle of either a comeback or a collapse, and often somehow both at once, and there is genuinely nothing else in America quite like it. Atlantic City is the whole American story. The boom, the bust, the reinvention, the hustle, crammed onto one boardwalk and lit up in neon over the sea. Just south in Margate, we have to stop for Lucy, because Lucy is the greatest roadside attraction in America, and I will hear no argument. Lucy the Elephant is a 65-foot tall, 6-story, 90-ton building shaped like an elephant built in 1881, which makes her older than the Statue of Liberty, by a real estate developer who thought a giant tin elephant would help him sell beach lots, which incredibly worked. You walk up a spiral staircase inside her leg, into a room in her belly, and out onto a carriage on her back for an ocean view. She's a National Historic Landmark, the oldest surviving roadside attraction in the country. She's been a real estate office and a tavern and a summer home, and for one weekend, an Airbnb. She has survived hurricanes, a lightning strike, and 140-plus years, and she is a giant elephant on the beach in New Jersey, and if that doesn't fill you with joy, I don't know what to tell you. Down to Ocean City, America's greatest family resort, which has been completely dry since it was founded by Methodist ministers in 1879 and has never once reconsidered. No alcohol sold anywhere, no bars, no liquor stores, which sounds like a punishment and is in fact the entire selling point, because it means no drunk chaos on the boardwalk and a whole town full of parents who can finally exhale. It's got a spotless boardwalk, Manco and Manco pizza that people argue about with real heat, Johnson's caramel popcorn that should probably be classified as a controlled substance, and the wholesome, sober, sunburned energy of a place built from the ground up for people with 3 kids under 10 and a firm 8:30 bedtime. You will have a lovely time. You will not have a wild time. That is the deal, and it is honored. Then Avalon and Stone Harbor, the 7-mile beach where South Jersey and Philadelphia money goes to summer. Avalon's motto is literally cooler by a mile, and the whole area is enormous beach houses, immaculate streets, high dunes, boutique shopping, and the specific quiet flex of families who have owned the same shore house since the 60s and rent it to nobody. It's the elegant, moneyed, understated end of the shore, and it knows exactly what it is. And then the complete opposite, and one of my favorite places on earth, Wildwood. Wildwood has a free beach. No beach badges in a state that charges you to look at the ocean almost everywhere else. The beach is absurdly wide from all the sand the tides keep dumping, and they run a tram down the boardwalk announcing, "Watch the tram car, please," in a voice every South Jersey person knows from memory. The doo-wop motels are a genuine national treasure. Dozens of 1950s and 60s, neon-drenched, plastic palm tree, rocket ship, and flamingo motels, the largest concentration of mid-century commercial architecture in the country, a preserved fever dream of the space age. The beach is so wide, in fact, that getting from the boardwalk to the actual water is a genuine hike. A solid quarter-mile trudge across hot sand, carrying a cooler and 4 chairs and a screaming toddler, which is the one thing nobody warns you about the free beach. The boardwalk itself is 2 miles of the loudest, brightest, most gloriously overstimulating sensory assault on the coast. Giant amusement piers, tram cars, fudge, funnel cake, water parks bolted onto the ocean, and that neon glowing over all of it like a UFO landed in 1962 and just decided to stay. Wildwood is loud and neon and unapologetically, magnificently tacky, and it is completely, defiantly itself, and I love it without a single reservation. And finally, at the very bottom, the very tip, as far south as New Jersey goes before the land runs out and hands you to the sea, Cape May. And this is where we end, because Cape May is the perfect ending. This is the oldest seaside resort in America, where presidents vacationed back in the 1800s, and it holds a distinction no other place in the country can touch. The entire city is a national historic landmark, not a building, not a district, the whole city, because Cape May has the second largest collection of Victorian architecture in the entire United States. Hundreds of candy-colored gingerbread mansions with wraparound porches and towers and trim, block after block after block, perfectly preserved. And the reason it's preserved is beautifully tragic. The town got economically bypassed 100 years ago. Nobody had the money to tear anything down and build something uglier. And so the whole Victorian city just sat there, frozen, until the rest of the world caught up and realized it was a miracle. And at the very end of the very end, at the southern tip where the Delaware Bay meets the Atlantic Ocean, stands the Cape May Lighthouse, 157 feet, first lit in 1859, still shining 199 steps to the top, and a view that takes in the whole point where the state finally, gracefully gives up the fight and becomes ocean. That's New Jersey. Top corner to bottom corner, from the highest rock in the state to the last light before the sea. From glacial lakes the Ice Age left behind to the second biggest waterfall east of the Mississippi to the second biggest Hindu temple on the planet to a giant tin elephant older than the Statue of Liberty, all of it in the state you've spent your whole life driving through with the windows up.